Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ with us. Evan, this is not the most glamorous week for the big games, but there are some interesting ones, and we'll start with the biggest one first. Tennessee and Georgia. We have no idea if Nico Amaliava is going to play, which would have it's affecting how I feel about the game overall, which I assume I'm not the only one. I'm sure Vegas feels the same way. What are the numbers showing us about the feeling on this? Because I know Georgia is a pretty substantial favorite right now because we don't know that information.
Yeah, at the moment, it's the most bet game of any game in college football this weekend, which isn't a shock to anyone. Like you said, it's the most high profile. It's also probably an elimination game considering both sides and the losses and where we enter at the moment. I think based off the market, we're going to assume Nico's going to play. Now, obviously, anything can happen at this point, but Georgia was as high as 11.5. Now it's down to 9.5, and you're seeing some Tennessee action come in. The markets are pretty tight here. So that would be my assumption. Now, in terms of what I think is going to happen on the field, like I said, Georgia elimination game from an emotional standpoint and a motivational standpoint, game means more, I think, to Georgia than it probably does to Tennessee. And then on the field, obviously Carson Beck has seen some, let's call it maybe some primetime ghosts of sorts recently, and Tennessee's defensive line could maybe bring some havoc. But the one thing I do kind of lean on here, Josh Heupel's offense, when facing this Schumann, Kirby Smart defense, 41-17, 27-13, 38-10. It's not a lot of points from Tennessee's side of the ball. So they've done a good job there. And then two nuggets I'll give you, including the postseason. Kirby Smart, 32-18 against the spread against ranked opponents. Georgia coming off a loss, 12-3 straight up, 9-6 against the spread, and 11-1 and 7-5 as a favorite. So I do kind of lean Georgia in this spot. Now, obviously, maybe Nico being confirmed, the spread kind of adjusts a little bit, but I think I kind of like the dogs here.
Yeah, and they're also coming off getting stung pretty bad too. So that to me, this is a Georgia team that doesn't lose 2 games in a row quite often historically. Those kind of things. I know that's not there's not a metric for that, but when you have that, it's that gut feeling about the bet, right? Is that some of that too?
Some of it, but also think about this. Look at Tennessee's. Okay, so Josh Heupel used to be king of first half. I had been touting this earlier in the year where I believe he was close to 65-70% against the first half spread. He went 3 games without scoring in the first half this year. They've lost a bunch in a row first half ATS. It just seems like it's a bit of a different team, at least first few games, than what we've seen recently. And that plays a little bit to me in terms of trying to go with the dogs and the defense there more than that Vols offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so another interesting one to me, and maybe only me, is Texas and Arkansas. And it is a rivalry game, and Arkansas is coming off getting absolutely shredded by Ole Miss. Which I don't think that bodes well for them here, but I can't go all in with Texas just yet until I see them play an offense like this. They have, and it's not their fault, but they've been kind of lucky to not see a dynamic offense really this year. So I don't know, if I'm betting, with a big number like they have, or if I'm looking at it and going, well, I'm not going to predict Arkansas to win, but when it's 17-18 or however it's moved, do I think that they could keep this below 17 points? Part of me thinks that they could.
The interesting thing, and you just mentioned it, so the spread was as high as 17. Now you're looking at a spread about 12.5, and the markets are relatively tight. Tickets and money, neither has hit a threshold of 60%, even though we do see some smart money coming in on Arkansas to cover. You have more tickets on Texas. You have the money coming in on Arkansas is what it looks like at the moment. But you kind of said it with Texas. Of the 8 SEC teams ranked in the current top 25, Texas has only played 1 and lost in convincing fashion in that game on their home field. So they haven't exactly played great teams, and Arkansas, we just probably saw the worst version of them, but I also kind of expect this to be Arkansas's Super Bowl. This is going to be the game they've got to be ready for, and they've got some sort of, they've got good coordinators, let's call it, to probably enter the contest, from Petrino to Williams. I think they're going to be ready here. And you look at Sam Pittman, 22-10 against the spread as an underdog, including 10-3 ATS when catching double digits. Now, I bet that 14 number. I bet the 14.5 number. You're at 12.5 now. I don't want to recommend anything under 13, since not a ton of key numbers when you talk about college football, just because scores are so erratic, but 13 does come into play a little bit there. So I would like that, but I kind of lean Arkansas here. I kind of want the points. I haven't seen the best out of Texas, and I think Arkansas can at least keep it close. But like you said, I don't think I'm calling an upset here.
Yeah, exactly. They hate Texas.
Yeah.
And I think Texas kind of forgot about that for a little bit, even though but they hate them. Like, they may be like fourth on Texas's rivalry list. They're Arkansas. That's their one.
And Arkansas's played well against Texas.
Yeah.
I believe even, obviously this goes way back and the teams are completely different, but they play them close historically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some of those things, you can just find two teams that played each other enough, and doesn't matter, like, coaching staff, offense, defense. It's just always going to be weird when those two teams play. Texas and Arkansas is a little bit like that. Baylor plays West Virginia on the road. 2 weeks ago, they shook the TCU monkey off their back. They've been terrible against TCU. They finally beat them. And of course, it took a last-second field goal to do it. We've got a Baylor student in the studio right now who rushed the field. It was his happiest moment of his life. But West Virginia has been a bugaboo for them. Both these teams are 5-4. Baylor 0-6 all-time in Morgantown. This team has been shaking monkeys off their back, but for whatever reason, they get in that altitude, or they smell moonshine. I don't know what happens. They do not play well against the Mountaineers on the road.
You're gonna, if you like Baylor, and your friend in the building is gonna like probably what I'm saying here. So Baylor got as high as 3, now down to 1.5. I don't think bettors really want to take a side here. Markets are very tight. I don't think we are comfortable or confident in either team to be able to kind of push it one side or the other. But at least as of late, I'm not really sure we all realize, except for maybe your friend, how well Baylor's playing. Mm-hmm. Bears have won 3 straight. Will come off a bye, do a trip to Morgantown, which I like in this one. And if you look at the Mountaineers, they return home after a grueling 2-game road trip that saw them win back-to-back 1-possession games against reeling teams, right? Like, we don't think much of Arizona, nor do we think too much of Cincinnati. So I think it really kind of tells to both opponents and both teams in this one. And then Baylor's defense ranks in the top 10 nationally in rush success rate and has only allowed 3.8 yards per attempt this year, which is great against a West Virginia run-first offense. And the stat I'll give you, Neil Brown at West Virginia and Troy, just 6-12 ATS as a home dog, including 0-3 against the number this season. I just like Baylor. I'm going to wait a minute. The line is dipping 3 to 1.5. I think it's just a money line play. I don't know if I need to get really involved in the number here, but I do think it might be a little back and forth. So I'm going to look to bet it live as well, assuming West Virginia gets into the game and maybe you get a plus number on Baylor at some point being on the road.
Yeah, well, that's good news. Look at, and Baylor's playing. They're both playing for bowl eligibility. Baylor is playing honestly, if they win, then the coaching staff can take a deep breath. Like, that means that there's no chance of missing a bowl now and getting fired. So I think that's a big motivator as well, that you can finally, scratch that off the list.
For both teams, this could be their Super Bowl. So, you know what I mean? Both teams aren't going far places here, but a win to get bowl eligible, a win over, I don't want to call it a rival, but a team on your level at this point in the season will mean a lot to both staffs.
BYU and Kansas. Kansas is 3-6, but the last couple of weeks, they've started to look like we thought they were going to look. Jalen Daniels is playing like Jalen Daniels again. There were some really questionable coaching decisions in the middle of that game by Lance Leipold and staff, but they held off. Jalen Daniels was that guy again that we all expected to see. They beat Iowa State. BYU, they win close games. That's what they do. They're inexplicable. It's inexplicable how they've been able to do this. But they're not, for a 9-0 team and a 3-6 team, This is a smaller spread than you would think most of the time, especially given that this is at night in Provo. Like that's where they're the best. But what's going on here?
Well, this is a fun one because I told you that Tennessee and Georgia was the most bet game in college football this weekend. This is number 2, and this game being at 10:15 p.m. Eastern, and right now having the second most tickets. A little bit of into the process here. Usually the 12 o'clock games get more tickets early on, just because most people bet on those before the other ones. This being a 10:15 game and having the second most tickets, a lot of action, a lot of people interested in this one. And BYU has moved from 3.5 to 2.5. Bets coming in on Kansas. And this is really just a matchup of the unluckiest team in the country, in my opinion, in Kansas, and probably one of the luckiest ones in BYU. One team, 0-5 in one possession games. The other, 4-0 with improbable walk-off touchdowns, right? Oklahoma State, Utah. It's just on and on and on. BYU, I've been betting against them. I got lucky a few weeks. I've gotten unlucky in others. I just don't feel like they're as good as their record. It's simple. Against FBS foes, BYU coach, just 8-15 ATS as a home favorite of 3 or more, including 0-9 over his past 9 in this situation. So laying points even in that Provo spot, I'm not fully interested in it. And then you look at this. Since 2022, Kansas, 2-1 straight up, 2-0-1 ATS when listed as an underdog. The week after winning as a straight up dog. Between 1990 and 2021, they were 2-19 in that spot. Okay, so I just feel like Kansas is a different animal. And I think the BYU train has to stop at one point because of the luck on both sides here. And when I'm betting, I'm really looking at just luck on some level, right? Like things have to come back to a median. And BYU's had a lot of bounces go their way. While Kansas, I'm not sure their record represents what they are as a team. So I would like the 3, and I think it's important this one, but I do kind of like Kansas.
There you go. All right. Last one, Arizona State, Kansas State. This is a sneaky good game this week. This is an Arizona State team that Kenny Dillingham has them rocking and rolling. Cam Scadaboo's going to play. This is going to be a run-first game on both sides of the ball. So I would expect that, like, it's one of those things where, like, you think about it, time of possession is going to be a thing, and the number might be lower, but then again, there could be some big plays in it as well. This is a tough one. This is a tough one to pick here for me.
Yeah, I think the handicap is tight here. So the spread was 9.5, now down to 7.5, obviously in favor of Kansas State. Lots of bets on Kansas State, even though the market has come down a little bit, which is interesting. So I do think off the top, we need to give a little bit of credit to Kenny Dillingham. Arizona State being 7-2 in this situation, but 5-1 in one possession games, you just have to give credit to them. Beating Utah, but they have beat Utah without rising. Beat UCF, even though UCF had a 406 to 260 net yardage advantage. Missed 2 field goals, gave up a block punt, interceptions, more and more and more that probably came back to tell you that UCF played a tighter game than maybe what we saw on the field. I would also expect a rested and healthy Avery Johnson to use his legs more. Their Big 12 title hopes are really on the line here. They're in the balance, and I think they need this one, and they're going to play like it. I know the number is a little iffy, but if this gets down to 7, it's the play I like on Kansas State. Chris Kleiman, 16-6 ATS as a home favorite, covering by almost 9 points per game. I think Kansas State should have no issues moving the ball against a very mediocre Arizona State defense. Dillingham's done an amazing job, but I do think this one is a little bit too high of a climb.
Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ, the best in the biz, man. Love everything that you guys are doing. Love the segment. I feel I've gone from novice to whatever the level is above novice in the couple months.
When we were entering this Kansas State game, I almost wanted to ask you your opinion on the game. Believe me, you have gotten really far here, and I think this is really good back and forth. And listen, as the college season's gone on, it's been very interesting, some of these lines and markets, so it's been fun.
Yeah, Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ. We'll have him again. He's one of the best, if not the best. I'm going to call him the best because he's on our show. Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ. Thank you, Evan. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
You as well. Enjoy the weekend in Slate, guys.
Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ. We've got more coming up. This is 365 Sports.